The University of Wisconsin-Madison estimates that it has lost $100 million so far from the COVID-19 pandemic. Nearly 16,000 employees will be required to take furlough days. There's a partial hiring freeze and budgets are being cut. That includes PBS Wisconsin, which is part of UW-Madison. The UW campus has been quiet since mid-March. In the wake of the COVID-19 fallout, students were urged to stay home after spring break. Right now, all classes are online and all summer programs are canceled. Chancellor Rebecca Blank joins us this week. And Chancellor, thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here, Frederica.
So what makes up that $100 million that the UW-Madison has lost?
So there's a lot of different components to it. Virtually all of our revenue streams are declining right now. We did return all of the prorated fees back to our students who are in dorms for their dormitory and food contracts. We've refunded parking fees to a number of our employees who are not currently on campus. We've had to pay some additional costs of converting everything to online for buying software and programming and some special expertise in order to do that as well as possible. Then we are facing some costs relating to the recent budget lapse that the governor announced. UW-Madison will lose almost $20 million in this year's budget, i.e. in the budget that ends on June 30th, out of that budget lapse. That's a lot of money to lose at a time when other revenues are down. Our gifts and grants are down, our athletic revenue is down, our union revenue is down. It's sort of across the board.
It certainly sounds dire.
Well, we went into this in a good financial position, right? We had some new money we were going to be spending next year, and we've pulled those investments, which I'm still grieving about, but are going to put that money into this crisis. We have some reserves, and we've worked very hard to cut expenses. We have a hiring freeze on. We have a pay freeze on. We were rejiggering some of our infrastructure and capital projects. And then, as you know, we've announced furloughs as well. So, this short-term amount we will get through. The real question is what happens next fall, and do we have a group of students and tuition and fees then?
Right, I want to ask you more about that in just a moment. But so the furloughs make up about $30 million. Is there also money coming from the feds to help offset this?
So we are going to get just under $20 million from the federal government. $10 million of that is dedicated solely to student support. And we've already given, I think, close to $6 million out in emergency aid to students who needed it for whatever set of reasons. So those dollars will disappear pretty quickly and not really offset these costs that I'm talking about, but they're going to students, which is just where they should. Then we get another $10 million that would offset, $10 million out of this $100 million, which we can use reasonably flexibly. That's really nice to have. I don't want to suggest $10 million is a small amount of money, but it still leaves us in a very big hole.
Do you expect that you will have to make further adjustments or cuts or layoffs or that kind of thing?
So we've said very clearly that we have laid out a plan that runs through the end of October. And we do not anticipate having to do anything further between now and the end of October. That said, we don't know what's going to happen next fall. And if it turns out that large numbers of students are not here, that we're back at a shelter-at-home situation, that we're doing a lot of online learning, we're trying very hard to prepare that so we don't have to do that, but it could happen. Then we're going to be losing a lot of fall and probably winter, spring tuition dollars as well. And that will put us in a much worse situation. And then we will have to take further action later on next year after the current plan expires.
Even as we sit right now, without necessarily knowing anything about a further extension of stay-at-home orders, what do you know about enrollments for, say, the freshman class or even for international students who pay higher tuition?
So I'm very pleased with the fact that our actually enrollment and acceptance data looks reasonably normal right now. We're right about on target with the number of students who said they're coming. Our international students are down a little, which is actually less than I would have expected. The problem this year is that, what's happening in May is not terribly helpful. There are still, I think, a lot of people asking, am I going to be on campus next fall? Do I want to be on campus next fall? And depending on what happens this summer, we could still lose a lot of those people who say sometime in August, I'm just taking the year off. I'm not coming. I'm going to do something different. So it's very hard to predict right now what the fall is going to look like. We're doing everything we can to plan a fall that has as many people on campus and as much online learning as possible. I hope we're going to be able to accomplish that.
I know that a lot of people are asking about things like UW athletics, the football season. What kind of planning or preparation is going on around that?
So, our athletic department is working with the Big Ten Conference, who are in turn working with the NCAA. And a lot of these decisions will be out of our individual hands here at the university. They will be made collectively by college athletics. I would love to think that we're able to do some competitions in the fall. I don't know how likely it's going to be that we're going to have 80,000 people in Camp Randall, but I'm not sure 80,000 people are going to want to show up in Camp Randall. So, we'll have to see. One option, of course, would be to try to play these games without fans. That still requires some 250 people, as officials in the teams, on the field, sharing locker rooms. And you do have to figure out the testing and the monitoring and all of the safety protocols to make sure that can happen.
Wow, a lot to deal with. Chancellor Rebecca Blank, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.